Today is April 14th, 2013, and we have here with us Isabelle Burrell and Dorothy Thompson.
Correct.
And we are talking about some of the memories that of their experiences more than 10 years ago. Starting with more than 10 years ago.
When we came down Loch Raven Boulevard, there was a sign right here that said, "Future home of a Methodist church." And I said to my husband then, "That's where we're going." It wasn't built yet, it was just a big open field. And a little white cottage set back over behind it, behind the meadow. And when it was built, we were not charter members, but we were 4 years, I believe it was, after the church was built that we were taken in. And Reverend Doggett was the pastor. And the next year, Reverend Doggett and Mrs. Betty Coover came to visit me and said, "Dorothy, will you do the Bible school?" I said, "Huh?"
So you did it.
I did it. And we had a great Bible school. We had classes over in the little white cottage, we had classes in the basement, and we had classes over here. Now the education building had not been built yet.
It was nice when the parsonage was right across the parking lot.
Yes.
You know, if you wanted them or something or needed them, it was, I guess it was convenient for them too,
Yes.
to have the parsonage so close.
We had Sunday school in the basement until we got our education building, and then we put the cottage. The cottage then took the cribbery and had the cribbery over there. And but we would go in the basement, we went down steps, and we didn't bother the parsonage at all.
Right,
You know,
right.
we were in the basement. That's what we did.
Now I understand that parsonage was not the first parsonage. Do you remember the first?
It was in an apartment up on Loch Raven Boulevard. They lived up there.
Yeah, that's right.
When Carol and Nan first came, I think they lived in an apartment up on the boulevard.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And they had the Bible school at that time. I lived down by Belvedere Avenue and Chinquapin Parkway, down on East Sham Avenue. They had a bus that came to pick up the children for Bible school that lived south of the church. And so that shows how many kids came that we needed a bus to pick them up.
That's right.
So many children
Oh, yes.
that they rang the bell down here for the Sunday school classes to wrap up their session, because when they started singing the first hymn upstairs, they rang the bell. Do you remember that, Dorothy?
Yes, indeed.
For the Sunday school teachers, they're almost there, but wrap it up.
Yes.
And that hall would be so packed with children, you could hardly walk through those halls. It was early 60s
Yes.
when they moved the chapel over here.
Because they needed that chapel space for
Sunday school
classroom.
room.
Space,
And
yes.
Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and the youth. We had a lot of youth,
Oh, my, yes.
you know, as they grew up.
Statistics in the book say that there were 800 folks coming to Sunday school,
That's
and it
right.
was 2 services.
That's right. We had to watch crossing the street, you know, the children coming.
Oh, I remember too, Dorothy, when you talk about crossing the street, we had a policeman out directing traffic because so much traffic was coming out of church that we had a policeman on the corner directed traffic so we could get out. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. There were a lot of people here all the time.
The church services were so crowded at Christmas and Easter that we put chairs down the center aisle. You know, at the end of each pew we had a chair, and then we opened the glass windows in the back of the church because people sat back in the narthex there, in the back part there. But I mean, it was packed.
There were a couple of Easters where they had folks down here too, right?
That's
And
right.
they put the sound
Right.
down here.
That's right.
At one time, we even had hat sales in Fellowship Hall. Do you remember that,
Yes.
Dorothy? They'd come in, the hat companies, and display the hats. And the women would all come and try on all these hats, because at that time, we all wore hats to church,
Oh,
you know.
yes, we never went to
And
church without a
slacks,
hat.
never. No woman ever wears slacks.
Gloves, too?
Gloves, yes.
And the gloves and the hats, like,
Yeah, I have everything. I have a whole bag of little white gloves that my girls had to wear. And I
have
had
a
one
couple
girl
of them,
who
not a whole bag
couldn't
full.
stand those things, and one girl who couldn't stand a petticoat, you know. One who would dress up and have 3 slips on, and the other one wouldn't get, Mom, I don't want to go to Sunday school like this, you know. And she married a minister. And we had good pastors.
we had all of them were good in their own way.
And
weren't they?
exactly right.
They were all different,
exactly
and thank goodness. But Cal Doggett worked very hard at establishing this church and getting it to where it is and where it was. I think when we have 1,600 members,
Yes.
was that the most I think we had? That was a lot of people. Carl just celebrated his 90th birthday, and I sent him a card, and he sent me a note back to thank me for thinking about him, just within the last month or so. But Carl was young, and Nan worked hard. I mean, they worked hard. And Nan, they had 4 children then.
Yes.
And I remember we had Methodist women. Nan that was so active with everything, she couldn't catch up on her sewing. And she would bring her sewing when we had our Methodist women. And she'll remember this if they come to this thing. She would be there darning socks and repairing the children's clothes while we're having a meeting going on. Nan kept her little fingers busy. She was a busy
A
woman.
multitasker.
Yes. Yes. indeed.
Multitasker.
Oh, she
Absolutely.
was. She was, and she helped in the church and everything.
Oh,
She was, they're delightful people, they're still delightful people.
And Carol never failed to write you a thank you note for whatever
I mean,
you did.
just wonderful
Whatever
people.
you did. He
But how
always-
many ministers have we lost? Lyman and Buckheister
Yeah.
and Cook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So how many,
But each one
how
of
many
them-
of our former ministers are living? Carl Doggett,
Yeah. He's the
The
first.
first. Roger.
Rogers still
Roger.
living.
And Thompson.
Hank.
Hank.
I see Hank quite often
Yeah.
because he's out the Masonic
Yes, he's
doing a
pastor.
fine
He's-
job
yes.
out there. That's his niche, I'll
He
tell you.
loved it, yes.
With those older people,
Mhm.
he's good.
You were talking about Nan Doggett. What about the other not first ladies, pastor wives?
Yeah.
Any
It
memories
seems to
of-
me that Nan was one of the most active ones.
Yes. Mhm.
The other ones would help, but they would be kind of like what's the date with it or behind the scenes. And,
A lot of them did Sunday school, though.
they helped with Sunday school
Helped Sunday school a lot.
and a UMW too. the
And
Methodist
Bible school especially,
Mm-hmm.
because they lived just right across the back alley, so to speak, and they could run over.
Any favorite ministers or experiences from childhood?
Any favorite ministers?
Or experiences from childhood?
From childhood.
We all have favorite ministers, but you don't think I'm going to tell you, do you?
Do you recall the church secretaries over the years who?
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
I go back to Ruth Wagon.
Right, I was just gonna say,
She
Ruth
may have been
Reagan.
the first one.
Yes, she was. Uh-huh.
And then Marlene came, I mean, Ruth was here long, and Marlene and, what was
Yeah.
that other lady that's so delightful?
I was
We'll
just
think
looking at
about
that the other day.
But then Marlene was here a long time, then Linda Jones and so on,
Yeah. But they
I think
ran
Ruth,
things.
and Ruth right now I talked to Arlene the other day, and she said Ruth isn't
Yeah,
in as good as health as she should be.
no.
But she's up in her 90s, and she's over at Pickersgill. And, but she's still living. All of the secretaries are still,
Yeah.
except the one that worked with Marlene. I can't think of her
Yeah,
name.
me either. Isn't that
But
crazy?
she was funny.